like, but really, why teaching? And I'm like, so many reasons. Even though everybody in the world has been in a student's role, doesn't mean you understand teaching. I still can't believe that they gave a 23-year-old a teaching position teaching high school seniors. I looked like a baby. My whole body would get so sweaty when I have to have a parent conference. To sum it up, my biggest piece of advice for brand new or aspiring teachers is this. Welcome back to the Caffeinated Classroom. If this is your first time here, my name is Marie. I'm a high school English teacher in San Diego, California. And it has been a serious minute since I did a sit-down video like this. Like, I honestly can't remember the last one I did. It was definitely last school year, so like spring maybe? It doesn't really matter. You don't care, it doesn't matter. My friend Megan from Too Cool for Middle School reached out to a few of us teacher YouTubers and said, hey, I get a ton of questions daily about what it was like to become a teacher. Like, just different questions. Why she wanted to become a teacher. We all get these questions, both on social media, in real life. Sometimes my friends, my non-educator friends are like, but really, why teaching? And I'm like, so many reasons. It's so good and so hard, but definitely the good outweighs the hard more days than it doesn't, so it like evens out really nicely. So Megan put together a little tag and a bunch of us are gonna do it. So when you are done with this video, head down to the comments down below and I will link the playlist. There are some of your favorite teacher tubers and a few who I'm sure you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, how am I not following this person yet? So make sure you check those out when we are all done here. So let's get started. Okay, the very first question is, did you always know you wanted to be a teacher? If not, when did you decide to become a teacher? Okay, so this already starts off on like a complicated vein for me. So like, I always knew I wanted to do something in a capacity of working with kids. I had thought that I wanted to like run my own youth theater company. And so I was a theater major and then I started looking into like child development and that sort of thing. And like, I don't know, things moved along and, you know, college happens. And so a few years later, I was basically in my last semester of senior year of college and I was a French major of all things, which I think might be one of our like questions down lower. And one day I was living with my parents because I live in San Diego and everything is expensive, and I went to San Diego State and I was like, yeah, I'm totally gonna live with my parents. And I remember walking out on like a Saturday morning, it was like February of my senior year of college, like always down to the last minute here. And I walked out and I turned to my parents and I was like, I think I know what I want to do after graduation. And they like put down their like coffee and they're like, pray tell us. And I said, I want to be a teacher. And they were like, yeah, we know you've pretty much always wanted to be a teacher. We don't know why you're doing other things. And they said, oh, a French teacher? Because I was a French major. And I was like, no, an English teacher. And they were like, oh, I've always like loved books and I've always loved writing, but I never really expressed any interest in like English classes for some reason when I was in college. I can't explain myself, okay? I just didn't. I don't know. But I just had this like epiphany, could not even tell you where it came from. Walked out and I was like, yeah, I want to be a high school English teacher. And they were like, okay, when? And I was like, oh, I'm gonna turn in an application for the SDSU credential program. And they were like, okay, when's it due? And I was like 3 weeks. And they were like, okay, cool. So yes, kind of always knew I wanted to be a teacher, but didn't quite figure it out until like down to the wire exactly what I wanted to do. And it's just funny how those things always happen, right? Okay, second question I already covered. What was my major in college? I have a bachelor's degree in French with a minor in theater, and then I have a master's degree in theater arts, but I'm an English teacher. I just really like the humanities, okay? What can I say? Language is my jam and I like telling stories. So there you go, English teacher. What kinds of requirements does your state have for teachers? Did you have to do observation hours, student teaching, etc.? Okay, so I'm in California, so we had to put in 40 hours of observation before you could even apply for the credential program. So like back to question number one, in like 3 weeks I had to put in 40 hours of observation and document it. I'm a very lucky girl that it all worked out so nicely and that the timing worked, because that was a lot. I also had a full course load plus the courses that I had to like add late for prereqs for the credential program. It was like a whole mess. My last semester of college, I like really did a lot. And I think it barely skimmed the tip of the iceberg of preparing me for what it is to be a working parent. But I digress. Okay, number 4. Oh, I didn't fully answer number 3. So, sorry. And then we have to do, in California, we have to do a year-long credential program with a year of student teaching, except now I think it depends on like what program you go through. The student teaching is a little bit different here and there, but I had to do a full year of student teaching, and you're supposed to do it in 2 different grade levels. You can be prepared left and right, prepared, right? Like theoretically, but teaching, as we all know, is just one of those things that you have to get in it, and you have to like be a part of it and doing it and be in the classroom to understand it. Like it's just, you can't get it. Even though everybody in the world has been in a student's role, doesn't mean you understand teaching, right? Like you don't understand how like the beast of school works. Okay, number 4, how did you decide which age group, elementary or secondary, or a subject you wanted to teach? Okay, so the subject we kind of covered. I love books. I wanted to be a writer actually when I was little. I used to write all of these stories that were very, very, very much inspired by / stolen from, just minor young plagiarism from existing stories, but that's what kids do, and I would just write and write and write, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world to be able to like tell stories and have people want to hear them and like read them. I like breaking down stories and getting to like the nitty gritty of it and just like helping students understand and make their own meaning behind information and stories and that sort of thing. So that's like really where that love comes from, and it just makes sense. And I like to talk. I don't know if you've noticed. So like discourse is really good for me, which is great for an English teacher. But then high school, I love little kids, but I wanted to get into the depth and complexity of the texts that we look at in a high school classroom. I like talking about books, and I like talking about articles, and I like the kind of conversations that you can have with a high schooler that just don't exist in the younger grades. It's my jam. What can I say? People think I'm crazy, and I probably am a little bit, but like I also think that people who teach 5th grade are crazy, because I've been in 5th grade classrooms, and it was like its own special ring of hell for me. It was really bad. It did not go well. Number 5. Did you do any substitute teaching? I have substitute taught 2 days in my life. One is when I took a sabbatical year because everybody was getting laid off in California and there were no jobs for me. So I took like a sabbatical and finished my master's degree, and I was full-time at San Diego State, and I tried subbing. Actually, when my husband and I were dating at the time, I subbed one day in like an AP Lit class in his school, and it wasn't that it didn't go well, it was that I was like, I'm not good at taking other people's directions. I like wanted to talk to them about the books that they were doing, and I had to work really hard not to derail the class. It didn't go well for me. And I did substitute teach maybe like 2 days when this was like the year before this sabbatical, when it wasn't clear if I was gonna have a job or not. And so I had to substitute teach my own teaching position before my principal at the time was able to give me a contract. It sucked. Like there's no way around it. Like being a new teacher in 2007, 2008, 2009 stunk, especially in California, because everybody was getting laid off and it was just a financial ruin. And I was so low on the totem pole, I didn't even get pink slipped. Like I didn't even get laid off. I didn't have a permanent position for like 3-4 years. And I know some of you watching this are like, yeah, that's me right now. Like, I get it. I feel your struggle. I have been there, and I had to substitute for my own teaching position. And even then it was like unclear if I was gonna have the job for a year. It was really convoluted and like not fun at all. So next question, shall we? Number 6, what was the process like to apply for the first teaching job you were hired for? At the end of my teaching credential program, I just sent resumes and cover letters to every school I could think of, especially to my own district of my alma mater, putting my feelers out everywhere I could. And I didn't get a call from my high school, but I got a call from one of our sister high schools, which is the high school where I currently still work. And I got my first big girl teaching job. I was like, I got a phone call. I was on a bus with a bunch of 6-year-olds because I was a summer camp counselor, and it was between my student teaching year and the fall where I was hoping to have a teaching job, and I was just kind of like waiting on phone calls. So every time my phone would ring, I would answer, and I'm in the front of the bus, and we're on our way back from a field trip from like summer camp, and it's my like then principal saying, hey, we'd really like you to come in. Hey, is everything okay in the background? I mean, kids are just screaming and they're singing songs, and there's like and I'm like, can I call you right back? And they were like, yeah. And then like the line went dead, and I thought they were never gonna answer, and then it ended up working. But I had like 2 interviews at my school. One was with an assistant principal, and one was with the actual principal. And then I went into, it was like an interview, but it was really just like an intake process at the district office once the school hired me the job. And I still can't believe that they gave a 23-year-old a teaching position teaching high school seniors. I looked like a baby. Okay, number 7. Were there any common interview questions you remember? I don't remember the specific questions, but I do remember scenario type questions, and they always have to do with classroom management, like behavior management. So they would like give you a scenario. So let's say you're in your 10th grade English class and such happens and blah, blah, blah. What do you do, right? Those sorts of like, what are your classroom policies? How do you react in certain situations? And it is really good stuff to like think through. No one really knows exactly how you're going to react until you have a few years under your belt, but that is something that if you are in student teaching or you're a first year teacher and you know you're gonna be like looking for more jobs, I would say 9 times out of 10, they're gonna ask you about your behavior management or your classroom management plan. So have ideas in place of truly what you would do, and knowing that plan for an interview process is a really good way to prep yourself. Like, curriculum is great, but nobody's gonna learn until you can manage a classroom. I keep going on tangents, but I feel like if you're watching this, you already know that that's what I do. So let's keep going. Okay, we have 2 more questions left. Number 9, what did you feel prepared you on the very first day of your very first job? What did you feel unprepared for? So I can kind of go back to my last answer. I definitely felt prepared with content knowledge to a certain point. I also didn't know what I was going to be teaching until about 4 days before school started. So like, I had all these ideas and I had nowhere to put it. So I had the most decked out room for 2007 that you would see in a high school. And it was like nothing like the classrooms that you see today. It was nothing like my classroom that I have now. I had like bulletin boards everywhere. The whole door was a bulletin board with all these like fun literary quotes because I had to put my energy somewhere. I was unprepared because I did not know what I was going to be teaching. Now I could go into a classroom and not know what I'm going to be teaching, and know though in the first week, it doesn't matter what subject or what like specific course I'm teaching, I need to put into place procedures. I need to make sure students understand how class is going to work. We need to talk about like our systems for behavior management and that sort of a thing. So like that is all the stuff that's going to be happening now, but I was not prepared for understanding all of that. I did feel prepared for being able to have a rapport with students. I did not feel prepared for having a rapport with their parents. Because, like I said, I was quite young when I started teaching. For me personally, my youth worked against me when it came to talking to parents, because I was like 4 or 5 years older than a lot of my students. I was teaching seniors, and I had a really hard time. I would get so, oh my God, my whole body would get so sweaty when I had to have a parent conference, because I was like, who am I to talk about what your child is doing? And when like parents would ask me questions like, what can we do at home? I'd be like, I have no idea. I live with my parents. I have no idea. And so that I did not feel prepared for. And I'm not really sure how somebody would prepare for that other than just talking to experienced teachers and just getting as much, like absorb as much experience and knowledge as you can, just to make yourself feel a little bit better. Is just be okay, like being open to learning and being really transparent about, I need to learn about that. Okay, last but not least, our last question. Do you have any last bit of advice for people who are on their journey to become a teacher? Yes, here's my advice. Keep going and remember your why. I know it's very cliche. Remember why you want to become a teacher and find the things that bring you joy, and make sure that that joy in the long run outweighs the sorrow, because working with people in any capacity is going to be hard, and that's an understatement. Working with kids is a whole nother brand of crazy in its own way, and it's so amazing and it's so fulfilling, and that's where all the joy comes from, but it's also so hard. And so there is a lot of sorrow, and you're gonna have a lot of down days, and it's okay. And just as long as you can find the like outline of it all being okay, or like of it still being fulfilling. Like I've had years where I felt so burnt out and I've had to find something else to do that helped me remember the joy that I have in being in a classroom and working with kids and doing all of the things that I love talking about and that we love talking about in this online community. So To sum it up, my biggest piece of advice for brand new or aspiring teachers is this. Just don't let yourself get so sidelined by the things that can distract you, because they do have merit. The things that distract you have absolute merit, but try to find a way to anchor yourself and be able to circle back to what it is that you feel tied to in education. Help yourself build those moments of joy in as often as possible, so then the really hard stuff is doable and figure outable. Okay guys, that is it. I wanna say again, a big thank you to Megan from Too Cool for Middle School for putting this all together. I totally get these questions too, Megan, so I'm glad that you were like, hey everybody, let's answer these questions for everyone, and maybe then create like a great playlist of resources for newer teachers or even teachers who just need a little like boost in morale, right? Like, let's remember why we became teachers. And actually, I've been having a really hard beginning of the year, and this video and thinking of my answers to these questions has helped me circle back to like what I love. I definitely find joy every day somewhere in my classroom, but like this past week kind of kicked my butt. So thank you, Megan, for helping me remember why I love what I do and why I kill myself for it all the time. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have not subscribed, please take a moment to do so. Hit the little bell so you don't miss any new videos. I have weekly videos coming up. Some are gonna be talking head ones like this. Some are gonna be vlogs talking about what's going on in the classroom. Lots of fun stuff coming your way. Make sure you check out the playlist down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.